Hi, everybody. Wow. What can I tell you? We were all watching last night, and it's like, okay. At least the Browns selected their number one pick. uh, the name of this show is Why Do the Browns Keep Doing This? And that's trading down. And I'm just grateful that we actually used the number one pick on the best player on the board. And we need that player. So there's not going to be a question about whether we did the right thing by drafting Myles Garrett number one, because I'm not going to be duplicitous, SAT word. I stated months ago, get the best defensive guy, get a guy on your defensive line, get somebody who's got pedigree, and take no chances and make no reaches with your number one pick. And the Browns did that. So thrilled that that we got Myles Garrett. And that doesn't mean he's going to be great. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work out. It just means that we got the guy who most people acknowledged was the best guy on the board. And if it doesn't work out, then everybody else was wrong too. I hate it when we make these reaches and, because we're the only ones who think something and it turns out that everybody else was right, So I guess that's kind of the way I look at that. However, when you start working number one on down, it's really interesting to see what happened or to surmise what happened. I mean, first of all, did the Browns run up Mitch Trubisky's worth in this draft? To go number 2 overall to the Bears? Here's the truth about Chicago. It is a tough place to play. It's harder to play in Chicago than in Cleveland. The lake effect is more serious in Chicago than it is in Cleveland. You get winds coming off the lake, you got the cold, and you look at the quarterbacks who are successful for the Bears, and you look at their Super Bowl year, and Jim McMahon was not a huge armed quarterback. It was a different era, granted, but you always got it's not the snot out of your nose football in Chicago. You gotta. The Walter Payton model was the good model for the Bears. You got to run the football. And we have the same situation in Cleveland. So we know that the quarterback position in Cleveland is a significant position. But at the same time, your offensive line and your running backs become very important as well. And no quarterback is going to make a living throwing into the wind consistently. Even a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, who doesn't play in a lake effect town, but does play in an area that can get cold, learned early on that having Jerome Bettis, having, running back, and, having Le'Veon Bell, whenever he has that running game, he's a much more effective winner in the league. And when he's forced to throw 50 or 60 times in a game in the environment, it doesn't work, even for a big-armed quarterback. So what are the Bears thinking about getting Mitch Trubisky at number 2? And the only thing I can think of is that when the Browns took Myles Garrett, they had this big sigh of relief and said, oh, God, thank God Trubisky's still on the board. Like they believed that the Browns were going to go for Trubisky. They bid on the fake. This is like watching Webb Slaughter do the stop and go. They bid on the stop and, the Bears look like the biggest douchebags in this draft as a direct result of what they did. I don't think the Browns really had that much interest in Trubisky, but I think that the Bears obviously were listening to what Cleveland was saying about him. Well, the Browns did do their famous trade down act, and this is where I become disenfranchised with what the Browns did. You have the number 12 pick. And you have Malik Hooker, who's just sitting there, and you need a safety. God only knows you need a safety. It's been a long time since we've had a real honest-to-God safety in Cleveland. And Malik Hooker would, he would fit that description. Well, we decided we were going to do the trade down again. And you know what everybody's saying, and there's truth to it. I mean, you can only trade down so many times. I mean, there is a present. And to keep assuming there's a future for Cleveland Browns football is ridiculous because the fan interest is at an all-time low. The only thing that's going to change the current belief or lack of belief in the fan base is to witness a better product being put on the field now. It really ceases to be about the future because this has been the message, wait till next year, we're building for the future over and over again. And Hugh Jackson will be gone long before that future is hit. We'll have to hire yet another coach, and you know how it goes. It's this never-ending cycle. And if I were from a business perspective, the Cleveland Browns would have been better off selecting Hooker with the number 12 pick. They would have been better off, if not Hooker, finding somebody who was inarguably a better talent than what they selected at 25. So they trade down so they can get a first-round draft pick next year. And then at 25, they pick a guy who's coming off of a dilute urine sample and who claimed that it was because of drinking excessive amounts of water, and the Browns organization isn't buying that. And it's like we're walking right back into the Josh Gordon thing, aren't we? The first thing that he does is the Johnny Manziel model. Oh, well, basically, he made a mistake, but the problem with Jabril Peppers goes way beyond a dilute urine sample. I will read this to you so that you understand how fucked up this is. And we've talked about this so many times on Moohead Radio. The notion that the Cleveland Browns consistently draft players like Cam Irving high in a draft and expect them to play a position they don't specialize in and don't even play in many instances. And here we go again. All right. Quote, Peppers is intriguing for a number of reasons, including how he'd adjust to playing safety, a position he said he's never had the opportunity to play. They asked Hugh Jackson, what are you going to do with Jabril Peppers? And he said, well, he's going to play safety. And Jabril Peppers is like, oh, that's news to me. I've never played the position before. How can you take a number 12 pick, trade it down to 25, and choose a guy who's never played the position that you want him to play? And this is what's wrong with the Cleveland Browns. They have what I call a horse whisperer mentality. They believe that, well, we hire Greg Williams. Greg Williams is going to make Jabril Peppers a great safety. But it doesn't work that way. It's not like Greg Williams or anyone else is a goddamn horse whisperer who's going to be able to somehow miraculously extract something out of a player that they've never done before in their life. Now, there is such a thing as finding a guy who's good at a position and coaching him up so that he works harder and becomes better at that position, quite certainly. But the notion of never having played the safety position, and that's going to be your starting safety. You're going to have so many miscommunications. I mean, you see how hard it is for Lonnie Chisenhall to adjust to center field. Think 100 times harder in the NFL for a safety who's never played that position before. And again, it's this, he's a great athlete speech, which isn't the best available, but is that incredible athletic window. That's the Barkevius Mingo argument. Do you see what kind of athlete he is? Except that he can't play fucking football. And I've been through this so many times. Van Waiters. I can name guys, David Grayson, who were drafted on the basis of being incredible athletes. But when push came to shove, he couldn't play the game. Courtney Brown couldn't stay healthy. I'm not convinced he couldn't play, but he couldn't stay healthy. But it's the Justin Gilbert thing. It's like, Wow, what an athlete he is, except he can't play cornerback. Not for us, not for anybody else. Complete whiff. So now Jabril Peppers is like, according to my main man, Hugh Jackson, well, he's going to play safety, but we could get him involved on the offensive side. He's right now our best kick returner, and why don't you just fucking blow me? You know what we did? We took a number 12 surefire pick and a surefire safety, flushed it down the toilet for a Swiss Army knife. I don't believe it. This team will never fucking learn. When you've got 1 in 12, you got to get 2 impact players. Fuck next year. You got to get 2 impact players. But you dilute your draft this year by trading down in the hopes that something's better next year, but nobody's going to be watching this year without beefing up your current roster. Here's what what Sashi Brown said. I think Jabril brings perhaps a dynamic play style and athletic ability that probably Greg Williams hasn't had in that position. And the other guys, he's actually turned into Pro Bowlers. You see, there's that horse whisperer thing again. We brought Greg Williams in because we're looking for a magic silver bullet. And that's the problem with the Browns. The Browns don't build with basic foundational building blocks the way you're supposed to. They're looking for that Keebler elf magic that doesn't exist. They're always hoping that somehow that little bit of stardust will touch that player and he'll suddenly be able to do things that he hasn't been able to do in the past. Sashi went on to say, that was really exciting for us to be able to add Jabril and give him to Greg, who's got experience in knowing how to use that player. How does Greg Williams have experience knowing how to use a guy like Jabril Peppers who's never played safety before? Now, he might have experience in being able to utilize a specific safety who's played the position, who has a specific skill set. You might be able to analyze the toolbox the guy's working with and say, okay, this is how I want to plug him in. But a guy who's never played the position before, I don't think so. Because of lack of experience, there are obvious questions about Pepper's ability to start at the back end of an NFL defense. If he works out, he could become the type of hybrid safety defensive coordinators are embracing. If he works out, why didn't you go with a safety that you know would work out? Doesn't make any sense at all. If nothing else, though, Cleveland.com says, and I don't want those words to start out that my number 12 pick turned into, if nothing else, though, Peppers is dynamic when he gets the football in his hands. Hugh Jackson said, we're going to start him over there on defense, that's for sure. But again, when you have guys that have the ability to make plays, you can do anything and everything you can do to put them in an environment so they can showcase their talent. Wasn't that the story that we keep hearing with all of these guys? Oh, he could play 5 different positions, except he can't play one of them good. Hugh Jackson earlier in his comments said, everyone's here is happy with the first day, and but Greg Williams has to be like in a swimming pool, would enjoy playing in a swimming pool. He's so happy. Meaning that Hugh's not really happy because Hugh didn't get anything. Hugh's like, well, maybe we can take that guy who's not going to be able to play safety and try to figure out a way to get the ball in his hands. Great. He's a tremendous punt returner and kick returner, so we're going to make sure that he can hit the ground running doing that. But the problem with that is that Justin Gilbert was a really good punt returner and kick returner that we drafted in the first round, and we never really gave him an opportunity to do that so that we could play George Atkinson the 14th, King Louis III, who would promptly stop as soon as he caught the football. Now, There's a third player, and he's a tight end. It cost us our 33rd pick and our 108th overall pick. Njoku. He averaged 16.2 yards per catch in 2016. He's a big guy who allegedly can get down the field. However, he's dropped a lot of passes in college. Here we go again. You know, and the thing that bothers me about all of this, well, he's a 3-down tight end. He can play the Y. He can play the U. He has all kinds of versatility. There's that word again. I don't want versatility. I want a guy who does one thing and does it well. I mean, if I'm hiring a guy to lay tile in my house, I sure as fuck don't care if he can do 13 other things. I want to know that he can lay tile. This is Mr. Moohead's shut up and carry my bags theory of business. Just do what you do. Hire people who have a specific skill and are very good at it. Could you imagine if I went and got my gallbladder removed like I did in December of 2015, and I went to a doctor and said to him, how many gallbladders have you removed? And he said, maybe 30, 40, 50. But gosh, I've also done a bunch of weight loss surgery, the bariatric surgery. I've done, hernia surgeries. So I'm really versatile. And then the other guy I talked to says, oh God, I've done like 10,000 of those. Everybody gets their gallbladder removed. I'm going to go to the guy who's a specialist in removing the gallbladder. I mean, a guy who has done it countless times. I don't give a shit about his versatility as a surgeon. I want to know specifically what he can do for me in my condition. But the Browns don't look at things that way. For some reason, they look at this versatility thing. The first thing that I look at in a tight end is speed mismatch capability, which Njoku has, fine, at the college level. Whether he can run a pattern and get off the line of scrimmage, we're going to find out. He's got size and he's got speed. That's good. But he doesn't have great hands. And this reminds me of the Greg Little fiasco coming out of North Carolina. It's like, he's big, he's strong, he gets the ball very well. When they start buying one of those jugs machines, where they spits the football out in the practice catching the football. I don't know any good receivers who had to practice catching the football. Jerry Rice didn't have to practice catching the fucking football. That's what receivers are supposed to be able to do. Fuck versatility. I don't know too many tight ends who block tremendously and can get downfield and make big plays. I don't think Antonio Gates was ever considered a great blocker. I don't think so. Ozzie Newsome was a great tight end, and he could block, but boy, he was just, in his era, guy who could get down the field. There aren't too many guys who are of the versatile, he can block, he's got speed, he's got great hands. So this guy, according to Hugh Jackson, has some versatility, but I'm reading reports that he dropped a lot of balls in college. In the end, the Browns didn't get a quarterback, which doesn't bother me because I'm not going to be duplicitous. Second use of SAT word. What I said was just let Cody Kessler play. And no, I don't want to see Brock Osweiler. Please, dear God, I don't want to see him. With that new offensive line that we have coming in, let Cody Kessler play quarterback and give him the job from preseason. All right? Let him build reps with the offensive line and bond with those guys. Let that be the case. I know he's not a great deep ball thrower, and I know that he's not your prototypical big-ass quarterback, but he is accurate. And if you give him receivers who can get off the line of scrimmage, maybe Njoku can open up the field a little bit for the Cleveland Browns and allow somebody like Coleman to be able to do something more than what he did last year. But he needs time. Any quarterback needs time. And if the Browns wind up getting another quarterback who's going to be the taxi squad guy, the third string guy who carries the clipboard, all well and good. Let him matriculate, That's fine. Let him baste in juices for a while. That's fine. But honestly, not Brock Osweiler. And Cody Kessler, you're going to have to live with his shortcomings. He's not a long ball thrower. But you've got to open the field up and have receivers who can get off the line of scrimmage, because our guys couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. And then our offensive line was a sieve and couldn't hold anybody up. If you give Kessler time to throw the football and he's a year older and understands the speed of the game, maybe there's a chance he can at least be an acceptable NFL quarterback until something better becomes available. You know what I said. The building block approach and the foundational approach is pretty simple. Your offensive line comes first. Your defensive line comes first. All right? Stop the run, run the football. Protect your quarterback. Those are foundational elements that every good football team must have. You saw what Alex Mack did in Atlanta, the difference that he did anchoring that line, the difference of having a solid offensive line versus what we had last year. So we improve our offensive line. In the process, we help Isaiah Crowell and anyone else get through holes and control the football a little bit more time-wise so that our defense doesn't get exhausted on the field. That's the first thing. And we protect Cody Kessler, who's already had 2 concussions. Foundational elements. And with our defensive line, with Myles Garrett, and now with, we have Danny Shelton with somebody surrounding him and Agba, hopefully a squad that can get some offenses off the field so that we can get our offense on the field on shorter field situations. Let's hope. Those are foundational improvements I'm all for. Got to do that. But when you reach, and is Njoku a reach? I'd say anybody who doesn't prove that he has good hands is kind of a reach in my mind. But I understand the tight ends that we have aren't field spreaders. They're not the guys who are going to threaten and stretch the defense. And we need to stretch the defense more because we cannot continue to operate solely in a 6 to 10 yard box, because everything gets congested and you need guys who can actually get off the line of scrimmage. First day of the draft, that's my take. Am I happy with what the Browns did? Well, I'm not as angry as what I was last year because we at least got Myles Garrett out of it. And Njoku may be okay. But no, I don't like the idea of passing on Hooker to end up with Jabril Peppers. I'm not happy with that at all. Now, before I get out of here, there is the Cleveland Indians. And the Cleveland Indians won last night. And we're watching the top 2 rookie of the years from the previous year, the winner, Carlos Correa, and Francisco Lindor. And you know what everybody is saying. I would rather have Lindor. You would rather have Lindor. We have the better player. But what a player he is. He might make a mistake like he did in the 9th inning. I'm not sure he would have thrown Altuve out in the 9th, but it did set up a potentially bad situation for the Indians. But the inning before, he wins the game for the Indians. A 456-foot home run. The bat speed that this guy generates, he's already got 6 home runs. Now, I've never believed he's more than a 15 home run guy, but who knows what the ceiling is on Francisco Lindor? Who in the hell knows? The ball just jumped off his bat. Yes, the ball was carrying last night. There ain't no question about that. And no, I don't expect to see many 456-foot home runs. That's Jim Thome-esque. from a little guy like Lindor. And it's all generated by bat speed. It's amazing. Kluber didn't have his best, fought through it. That's what professionals do. He's got a cool head. And Cody Allen kept his cool when things didn't work out so well in the ninth, but got out of it. And give Yan Gomes a little credit. He's starting to hit the ball a little bit, but boy, I'll tell you, he's a better defensive catcher than Roberto Perez. I mean, he can throw that ball from his knees. He Manny Sanguian, two guys down off the base paths. He gets out into his throw motion so quick, it's scary. And when you throw Altuve out at second base, you've thrown somebody serious out at second base. Overall, the Indians are doing okay. And, I want to see warm weather come around. I want to see how the Indians, once they get into their, the real dog days of the season, what the Indians come up with. As we sit right now, I'm taking a look at tonight's game. I believe starts at 7:00. I want to say, and we got Seattle coming in, sitting with a 12-9 record. Yeah, could it be better? Yeah, it could be better, but it could be worse too. I'm not worried about the Indians right now. I think, it's nice to see the ball jumping off Encarnacion's bat too. So, weather gets warmer, team's going to be a little bit more offensively able. And I think the way the ball was carrying yesterday in Cleveland is an indication when weather starts getting a little bit better, the ball carries out to right and right center. That's always been the case at Progressive Field. And I guess the final thing I want to say is that now LeBron James has beaten Larry Bird mano a mano. So Larry Bird has stepped down as the president of my beloved Indiana Pacers. I'm going to read this to you. Stephen A. Smith believes that Larry Bird did not want to recruit talent for Paul George if he believes that George can possibly walk away from the Pacers. Possibly? A reason for Bird's departure has not been confirmed, but sources told ESPN's Mike Wells that the plan had always been for Bird to strongly suggest to owner Herb Simon that Pritchard take over as president when Bird eventually stepped down. Bird's preference over the years have been year-to-year contracts. At 60 years of age, Larry Bird is about my age. But the timing of this is indisputable. It's called being done with it. The Pacers are done. He wasn't able to put together a good enough roster, and the guy who's his best player is going to leave. There's no question about that. To suggest that Paul George has nothing to do with this, it's crazy. Everybody in that organization knows that a guy in Paul George's situation who has shown his worth is going to go the Kevin Durant route. He's going to go to a team like the Spurs. He's going to go someplace to an organization that is close to making a big step of ascension upward, but he's not going to stay with an organization that is going in the other direction. So it's nice that LeBron James was able to put the final salt into Larry Legend's wound so that Larry Legend moves on into retirement in French Lick, and that the King remains at the top of the NBA as the best player who's ever played the game. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this Moohead Radio podcast. I appreciate everyone's patience with me as my health has been kind of veering all over the place. We'll just keep doing these and hope that you keep watching them. We'll talk soon. Hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Let's hope for more interesting football news. Until then, bye-bye now.